Hey everyone, my name is Ryan Becker. You're watching my four-part series on editing a podcast from start to finish, and I'm taking you through all the steps that I follow in Adobe Audition in order to put my podcasts together. So what I'm doing is I've taken a sample episode or sample clip from an episode of A Beautiful Faith, one of the podcasts that I host, and I've taken us through compression. I've taken us through setting up an overview of Adobe Audition, and taken us through equalizing and mixing and balancing those voices out, as well as normalizing the volume between all of the different files to make sure they all have the same volume level. So go check out the other parts if you have missed any of that. And if you want to know more about starting a podcast from all the way from nothing, and you just have an idea, all the way to publishing and having bought gear and figuring out all the equipment that you need for an affordable price. If you want to know more all about that, then head on over to absurdnetwork.com/webinar. I have a podcasting 101 webinar. It's 2 hours worth of content for you that will walk you through the entire process so that you are ready to go and ready to publish your first episode. So on this part, we're going to talk about intro music, outro music, adding all of that in, and then getting your file ready and exported down to an MP3, combining all of this into one audio file. So I have my 3 tracks. This is me, this is my co-host, and then this is an empty track that I've kept available for my intro and outro music. So what I've done is I've drag and dropped my intro and outro music to the files panel. I totally blanked there. To the files panel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply drag and drop. And near the end, I'm going to drag my outro and drop it as well. So from here, now I need to line everything up. Now my music, my intro music specifically, actually gets quieter after the main thrust of it. It gets quieter, and it's meant my audio editor that actually created this for me. He did this so that it would naturally fade out as I'm talking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do that even if the track that you have doesn't naturally do this, and you can see it by the waveform. If you have a waveform that does this, awesome, because it means that you can simply move the beginning of your files by selecting both of them. Make sure that you don't select all 3, and then move simply where you see the beginning of your waveform. You can move that to where the track gets a little bit quieter. So now if I were to play this, it would, I would come in right when the audio starts to get quieter. But if you have a file that doesn't get quieter on its own, here's what you can do. So you've got 2 bars going across each individual track. You've got this one, which is your pan. So if I move this up, it's going to pan left, and if I move this right, it's going to pan right. If I move it down, it's going to pan right. So don't mess with that one. What you actually want to mess with is you're potentially going to want to mess with this one, and this is your volume, or you'll want to mess with one of these gray squares. So the gray squares are quite literally fade in and fade out. And the yellow line, as you drag it in, the yellow line is going to determine what kind of fade it is. So let's say I want it to fade out and mute very quickly. That's what I wanted to do. But let's say I wanted it to mute quickly and then kind of fade out slowly over time. Then I could do that as well. This is great for outro music, for the outro portion of it. However, if you're wanting it to just naturally get quieter as you start talking, then one of the things that you can do is you can, once I'll move this out of the way, you click anywhere that you would like on this line. You'll probably want to select the point right before you start talking. So I'm going to match this waveform just for kicks. So I'm going to select, I'm going to zoom in for us. And we're right back where we were. We're still just looking at seconds now. And I'm going to add a point by just clicking right there. Then I'm going to add another point slightly further down from it. And all I have to do is drag this down. I'll drag it down quite a bit. And now what this is I've said I want it to play at normal volume, no changes, until here I want it to drop over this length of time. I want it to drop quickly and fade down and then continue playing at this level. And then if I want it to fade out more and just quietly fade out, if it doesn't have an actual ending, then I will use the fade out tool by dragging that in. There. I have now I've placed my intro music. I have lowered the volume for when I start talking, and then I've set it to fade out over time as the episode continues. Now, my file already does all of that. So I don't need any of these, so I can go ahead and delete those points and reset it back to normal. For your outro, you can do the exact same thing, but in reverse. So this is, now it's quieter, and then it gets louder when I'm finished talking. So it's meant to be kind of like the crescendo after I'm done talking. So if at the end of the episode, this is actually the very beginning of the episode, but at the end of the episode, I usually say something to the effect of, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week. And right after I say week, I want that music to come in loud. It's been going for the last couple minutes of my recording, but now I want it to come in loud. I want it to really send us off with some high energy. And so I place it right there so that it gets loud right after I'm done talking. If you want to do that again, all you would do is for your outro, if you want to do what you did for your intro but in reverse, you'll select 2 points on your file, and then you'll want it to start raising after you're done talking, and you'll simply increase the level by dragging your second point up. And now you can continue, you can add as many points as you want if you want to make it louder at a certain point or make it quieter at a certain point. You can do that just by adding more points to the volume line. And if you want to reset them, you simply select them again and delete them. Problem solved. Now, there's one more trick that I want to talk to you about, and it's this. Typically, when people edit music files, they're going to naturally be louder than your voice is. So watch what happens. Now, I have everything muted so that when I play this, you're not going to hear it. Just watch the levels down here as I play the audio file, as I play the music, and then as it fades in to. See how loud that is? It's almost peaking, and not quite, but it's as loud as it can possibly go. But then when I play my voice, if I move it over to where my voice is almost 10 decibels quieter than the actual music is. So what you'll want to do is if you're in this situation and you want to reduce the volume of the whole thing, you don't need to worry about using the volume bar in the clip. You can if you want. If you need to adjust these clips separately, if you need this one to be louder than this one, then you'll need to do that or put them on separate tracks. But if you have your entire track that you need to do the exact same thing to, coming over here to this volume knob and simply increasing or decreasing it, and I'm going to increase it by 10 or decrease it by 10 decibels, means that it's now going to be quieter and it's going to fade in a lot nicer now and balance so that someone doesn't hear it and immediately feel like they have to turn it down all the way and then turn it back up when I start talking. Anything like that, it doesn't panic anyone. Rather, it sounds at one smooth, consistent volume level the entire way through the episode. So now, technically, this is a completely finished podcast. Now, obviously, this is not the end of the episode. My episodes are usually an hour long, so I'd be looking at something about this long. Usually, all of this is the rest of the episode that isn't there. So to export this, all I need to do is come over here to File, and then I can go down to Export, Multi-Track Mixdown, and Entire Session. And once I do that, it's going to let me name my file, select where I want to put it, and I am good to go. If you are working with multiple files, or let's say I want to export a version of this with just my voice in it, or I just want to export a certain time of this, right? Let's say I'm just trying to make a quick clip. One thing that you can do is you can use the time selection tool or just press T, and you can highlight a very specific portion that you want in all of the active clips that are present in this time portion. If I go to Export and I go to Multi-Track Mixdown and Time Selection, it will only export what is in this time selection. So if you want to export something very, very specific, that is the way to do it. Now, you are virtually done with your podcast. At this point, you can export it, name it what you want, and you are good to go. Your file is ready to go, and everything's fine. Once you have exported your file, if you want to make sure that your volume is good across the board, in fact, I'll go ahead and just do a quick time export here so that it is so that we don't have to wait as long. I'll just let it be named whatever I want it to be. I'll hit OK. Once you've exported a file, it will actually show up in your Files panel. And so one thing that I can do, one thing that I like to do at the end of, as a final check for my files, I will clear my match loudness window, and then I will drag my finished episode in there, and notice it's going to analyze it and make sure it's at the volume level that I want it to be at. If it's anything other than the number that I originally set it at that we investigated in the last part of this when we talked about mixing and volume control, then I have the opportunity to run it one more time, and now it'll affect everything from the music to the voices all at once, and everything will be changed to this average loudness that I want it to be at. So that is how you edit a podcast. You're ready to go at that point. If you are satisfied with everything, you can click and see your waveform all the way through. And if you're satisfied with how that looks, then you are good to go. Upload your file to your host, and you have an episode. Thank you guys so much for watching this series. If you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/absurdnetwork, or go to absurdnetwork.com. Check out any of the shows that are on that network. And just thank you so much for enjoying this video. And let me know what else you'd like to see me do a video on. I'd be happy to walk anyone through really any of the steps of podcasting. Thank you so much for watching.